Good deal. Well, I'm also interested in a couple of other things that you are involved in. Number one is tobacco reduction, and you're actually an advocate for vaping. Can you talk about that a little bit? Why? My understanding of vaping is very limited. I've got one son that does it. Um, is there tobacco in vaping, and how is vaping less harmful for, say, your lungs, your overall health than
Mm.
smoking cigarettes?
Yeah. Look, in an ideal world, probably nobody would be smoking or vaping. Vaping doesn't have tobacco, and this is the key
Okay.
point that people, and this was identified in the early 70s, that generally people smoke because they want the nicotine. Nicotine is a slightly psychoactive substance.
Right.
It doesn't give them a high, but it either has a calming effect or it has an effect on. It's one of the reasons why something like 80% of people with schizophrenia smoke. It's because the nicotine has a calming effect on them. So when you vape, you're getting nicotine without tar, without carbon monoxide, without a whole host of other noxious and carcinogenic chemicals that come from burning tobacco. So it's not nicotine that causes lung cancer. It's not nicotine that kills people. It's the burning of tobacco. So when you have liquid nicotine and you're vaping it, you're getting the nicotine without all those other chemicals. It's similar to people if they're using the chewing gums that people use to quit smoking, or the patches that have nicotine in them. So it's nicotine replacement. It is estimated by Public Health UK, it's a government agency, that vaping is at least 95% less harmful than smoking. So it's not harmless. Nothing on this planet is harmless. And if somebody doesn't smoke, I would absolutely not be advocating that they take up vaping.
Right.
But if somebody does smoke, then I would absolutely say that it is far better that they vape than they smoke.
Yeah, there's some controversy here in the States. The company Juul is there's been some pressure put on them to not make flavored, what do you call them, vape pods or whatever.
Flavored liquids.
Yeah.
Yes, I know, which are sort of seen as being appealing to the youth market.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, adults like lollies as well. And the Flavours appeal to adult smokers. It's not just the kids. And there has been a degree, because obviously I do follow these things, a degree of moral panic over Juul. But what the data still tells us is that smoking rates amongst American youth is still in decline. So if vaping was a gateway into smoking, we'd be seeing higher rates of youth smoking, and that's not what we're seeing. So should kids be taking it up? No. But if they have to take up something, I'd tell you what, I'd sooner them vape than smoke, and I'd sooner them vape than use heroin or a whole lot of other things. So,
Right.
sometimes we have to be a bit pragmatic. And the other thing I think is worth saying is, for a lot of people also, they like a hand-mouth movement, and the nicotine gums, the nicotine sprays, and the nicotine patches don't provide that.
Mm-hmm.
So look, vaping is a practical, solution, and it does enable smokers to access nicotine in a less harmful way.
Yeah. So the other thing that you're involved in is marijuana advocacy. So this is something else that here in the States is, kind of a firestorm of debate is going over. But it seems like the pro-marijuana advocates are winning the debate, and we're seeing more and more states make it legal. And it's probably only a matter of time before it becomes legal at the federal level as well. You just got to get the right guy in office, I think. Why do you advocate for marijuana use, and what are some of the things that people should be concerned about?
Yeah. Now, I really want to very, very clearly separate medicinal cannabis from recreational marijuana use.
Okay.
And my involvement is with a medicinal cannabis company in Australia. In the US, I think you now have 32 states that have legalized medicinal cannabis. I think Missouri, and I can't remember the second state that just came up at your most recent midterm elections. And I think there's about 8 or 9 that have recreational marijuana, and obviously Canada's gone down that path. Canada's had medicinal cannabis for about 18 years, and it's used in other jurisdictions.
In
Essentially,
Canada, now my understanding of Canada is it's totally legal across
it
the
is
board.
now, yes, they've gone legal recreational as of
Yeah.
October, but they've had medicinal for since about 2001 too. Cannabis has useful medicinal purposes. It's not a cure-all, and I think that's an important point, and it's not a fix for everybody's problems. And unfortunately, some of the advocates become very, and I understand why they're passionate, but sometimes they make claims that are not helpful. It
Right.
has been shown to help people with chronic pain, and it can alleviate chronic pain in some people. It can help people with cancer where they're having chemotherapy and they're getting nausea and vomiting. It's been shown to help some children with epilepsy, particularly forms that aren't responsive to other medications. It can help people with MS and with multiple sclerosis. But the thing about medicinal cannabis is that nobody has ever died from an overdose of cannabis. And, in the United States, I think in 2017, there were some 70,000 overdose deaths, largely associated with prescription opioids. And a lot of these are for chronic pain. So if we have an alternative, which is something that is not going to kill people and that can help, then that really is something that we should be looking at. And it's like all medications. Should only be used where the benefits outweigh the side effects, and if either A, people take and it doesn't help, or B, they take it and it causes side effects, then like any other medication, it should be stopped. But I think the way it's treated in some jurisdictions is this fearful, terrible drug is quite wrong. It is a medication that can help people. And, in my opinion, those people who can be helped should be able to get reasonable access to it. And I think you're right, we are going in that direction around the world. Germany has legalised medicinal cannabis, the UK. I think Brazil is now going down this path. New Zealand is looking to go down that path. South Korea has become the first Southeast Asian country to legalise it. Look, I suspect within the next 10 to 15 years, we'll be back to where we were in the 1920s, before probably the 1930s, where medicinal cannabis was used. It's only since the mid-1930s that it was outlawed.
Right. Yeah, the number of opioid deaths here in America is just staggering. I mean, it's amazing how many people are addicted and how many people overdose. And I don't know much about it other than what I read on in the news and whatnot. But boy, it sure seems like anything that we could do to lessen the impact of opioid abuse in America would be. I mean, it would be huge. It would be huge. How does marijuana use? How does it lessen the need for opioids? How does it relieve pain? I've heard this claim from people before, but how would that work?
Look, the human body has what's called an endocannabinoid system, which was only discovered within about the last 15 years or so. So there are receptors for the body's own endocannabinoids. There's one called anandamide. There's a couple of others. We don't have to go into technicalities. And medicinal cannabis that's taken in, and most of the time medicinal cannabis is taken as an oral preparation. So you swallow it. You're not smoking it like a joint.
Well, that's interesting.
Some people do vape it. Some people have oils. Some people take it as drops under the tongue. It's like, for example, paracetamol, or there's a whole host of pain-killing medications that work on receptors within the body to lessen that pain. Now, what we find with medicinal cannabis is it probably has two effects. One is a direct analgesic or pain-killing effect. The other, and this is what the studies often tell us, is that it also can have a bit of a calming effect. So people say, yes, I'm aware that I still have some pain, but I don't feel quite as badly about it. So overall, it can improve people's quality of life. Weight for weight, it's not as strong a painkiller as opiates. Now, if you've just had a broken leg and you've been in hospital, then that's probably not the time when medicinal cannabis as a painkiller is going to be very helpful to you. That is the time when, for the first, so many days, it's actually quite useful to have an opiate painkiller. But if you have chronic ongoing pain, then what you don't really want is to be on an addictive medication that has, unfortunately, a potential to kill you. So that is the role really for medicinal cannabis. At a cellular level, like all of these medications, it'll work on different receptors. And I really do want to stress that nothing works for everybody every time. So it's not saying that we should never use opiates. It's saying that we just really want more options, and we want to be, where we can, moving people away from, or at least reducing their dosages of opiate medications, which are far more dangerous than medicinal cannabis.
Is there any evidence of liver damage from marijuana?
Look, there hasn't been. One of the things that if people are starting on medicinal cannabis, it's useful for them to have baseline liver and kidney function tests. But the thing with any, and there are a lot of other medications that can affect the liver, and statins for cholesterol are very high on that list. So we always come back to, are the positive effects outweighing the negative effects? Now, in therapeutic doses, the chances of any liver abnormalities from medicinal cannabis, it's not zero, but it's extraordinarily low, and it can be monitored. And if, and I underline if, it was a problem, then like with any other medication with unacceptable side effects, then you need to stop it. But no, alcohol is a much bigger issue for the liver than cannabis.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dr. Joe, I think we've kind of reached the end of our time. I really appreciate you coming on. How can my reader or listeners connect with you? Can they follow you on social media? How can they do all that?
Yeah, look, they go to my website, which is www.drjoe.net.au, and you kindly mentioned about the book, which is Dr. Joe's DIY Health, and you can get copies there. It's $20 Australian, which probably is about $13 US or something like that. And I also have a blog called drjoetoday.com, and probably the simplest thing is if you go onto those sites, you can click the buttons for Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, where I do have a presence.
Okay, fantastic. We're going to put links to all of that in the show notes, and you guys can go to mysugarfreejourney.com/podcast to get that, to see that, all the links to his social media stuff and the books and whatnot. So, Dr. Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
All right, fantastic. Those of you that are listening, hold on. We'll be right back with some more information. All right, hold on.